Sheena smirked. She had thrown a ton of questions in rapid succession at her niece's child, on purpose to embarrass Nora. Sheena was confident that Nora was too much of an ignorant country girl to have given her child a quality education. Nora kept her gaze lowered and was silent. Melissa hurried between them to play peacemaker. Sheena, Cherry grew up abroad with Nora. They value quality education over there. She's been brought up very well. Sheena leaned on the sofa. She acted as if she owned the place. Quality education? Ridiculous. They don't offer anything compared to what we offer our children. Parents that are worth anything in this country put their children through strict private education from an early age. Her eyes were like blazing torches as she looked at Nora. So, you're Nora. It's a pity you're all grown up and didn't have the chance to really make something of yourself. But you're my sister's child, so, of course, I'll take care of you, despite the stories I've heard. Pregnant before your wedding, dumped by your fiancé. That just won't do. I'll find you a nice, rich husband to take care of you for the rest of your life. As for your daughter... She looked at Pete and scanned the child up and down. Then, with a forced display of charity, she said, 5 years old is a late start compared to the other children around here, but there's at least still hope for her. Nora had a very cold look in her eyes. She smiled sarcastically and said, You're very kind, but you don't need to bother. I'll take care of my daughter's education myself. Her daughter had an extremely high IQ, but she was only interested in games. Cherry's education was becoming a huge headache. In particular, her knowledge of history had gotten all jumbled thanks to her time abroad. But none of this meant that others were free to criticize her child. You're going to take care of her education, Sheena said coldly. What are you going to teach her? How to play games on her cell phone? How to have a chaotic life? Ruin her own marriage when she grows up? Sheena! Mrs. Anderson reprimanded her, causing her to scowl in annoyance. Melissa even frowned and said reproachfully, Sheena, I know you mean well, but you're being too harsh. Sheena sneered. I just want her to understand. It's not easy to be a child of a wealthy family. There are high expectations to meet. She glanced at Nora and Cherry and said, I know this is all new to you. I'll show you my daughter Lena's progress in her studies. Maybe that will help you understand what I mean when I talk about education. She turned to her daughter. Lena, sweetie, come here for a moment. Lena was 6 years old. Sheena had given birth to her later in life at 40 years old. The little girl ran in from the next room. She was wearing an expensive dress and looked adorable. At her mother's direction, she stood in the center of the group as if about to perform. She raised her chin and declared proudly, I know 2 foreign languages, Spanish and French, and can speak both fluently. She recited a few lines in both languages flawlessly. With her poise and excellent pronunciation, it was an impressive display. When she was finished, she looked at Pete triumphantly. Sheena raised her chin proudly along with her. She looked at Nora and asked, And what about Cherry? Nora was about to speak when Pete's lips suddenly parted. He spoke in a language that no one in the room recognized. Stunned, Lena asked, What was that? Pete calmly replied, It's Arabic. It's not very common, so I'm not surprised you don't recognize it. Mummy has taught me 8 different languages. Lena was embarrassed, but she refused to be beaten. She said, I've also participated in many competitions and took 2nd place in a children's calligraphy competition. I also got 2nd place in a robotics competition for juniors. Puzzled at the proud way she said this, Pete frowned. 2nd place? I'm sorry you lost. Lena was confused. Furiously, she went on. I can recite 300 poems and spell 1,500 words. I've also learned programming and Olympiad-level maths. Pete pursed his lips and sighed. Poems aren't hard to memorize and recite, and programming is easy to learn. You only need to look at it once or twice. Pete took Nora's hand and said, Let's go upstairs, Mummy. Aunt Sheena probably still has something to talk to Grandma and Aunt Melissa about. Let's not disturb them any more. He led Nora up the stairs, leaving the dumbfounded Andersons behind them. When they reached their rooms, Nora quickly closed the door. Then she turned around, picked up Pete, and put him down on the sofa to study him. Nora knew Cherry hated language studies. She couldn't imagine when or why Cherry would have learned those lines in Arabic. Something was definitely not right. She was about to ask Pete when her cell phone suddenly rang and interrupted her thoughts. Nora picked up the call. The moment she did, she heard Henry's voice from the other end. "Nora, you've got some nerve. How dare you have the company dividend sent to your bank account? What am I supposed to live on now? Give that money back right now." Nora replied coolly, "Why is it my responsibility to make sure you have money?" "You!" Henry was too furious to speak. After a few deep breaths, he said viciously, "I see. You're buddies with the Andersons now, so you're leaving me behind. Are you trying to cut me off? I won't let you get away with it. If you want to get rid of me, it's going to cost you $8 million. Does that still sound worth it to you?" Nora's eyes darkened. She couldn't believe he was asking for so much. When he heard her silence, Henry laughed and said, "I know you don't have any money, but the Andersons do. They wouldn't want me to show up in New York and embarrass them, would they?" Nora couldn't believe how shameless he was being, but after she thought about it for a moment, the corners of her lips curled upward. "Is that all you want? Okay, I'll transfer the money to you right away. But first, tell me where you sent my son." After a short pause, finally Henry agreed. "Fine, send the money and then I'll tell you." After ending the call, Nora tapped away on her cell phone. It was easy for her to write a simple Trojan horse malware program. When it was ready, she sent it to Henry. The program would show fake funds transfer information when it reached him. When he opened the message, Nora would gain immediate access to his cell phone, allowing her to eavesdrop on him. She would never, ever send him money. After she finished all this, she used her cell phone to monitor the conversation on the other side. She heard Wendy's voice first. "Did she do it? Has the money been transferred?" "Yes, it has." "You've never mentioned her son's whereabouts in all these years, Henry. Where exactly did you abandon him?" Henry let out a sinister laugh and replied, "Her son? He died a long time ago. I watched him take his last breaths and then I buried him. If she wants him back so bad, I can tell her exactly where to dig. But all she'll find is a pile of bones." Nora felt as if a bomb had been dropped in her mind. Her grip on the cell phone loosened and it fell to the ground. He's dead. No wonder Henry had refused to tell her anything all this time. No wonder none of the private investigators had been able to find a single clue. Her vision went blurry. Large teardrops slid down her cheeks. He's dead. He died a long time ago. She knew it was her fault for not protecting her son. She clenched her fists tightly, her fingernails dug sharply into her palms, yet she didn't feel the pain there. Her pain was elsewhere. She felt as if she had been stabbed in the heart. It hurt so much that she struggled to take a breath. She bent down, blood roaring in her ears. Suddenly, she felt small arms wrap around her. Nora raised her head and saw a small face stained with tears from shock and fright. Pete's mouth opened and closed as he repeated something over and over. At first, she was too distraught to understand him, but finally his words made it through. "Mommy, don't cry. I'm right here. I'm still alive." Nora was as pale as a sheet. She thought back to the day her son was born 5 years ago. She had gone into labor early. She could remember the private clinic very clearly. The white paint on the walls had been peeling, and the light in the delivery room had been dim. There had only been one doctor and a nurse on call. Nora remembered thinking that they looked untrustworthy. She had lain on the cold delivery bed, undressed, sweating, and alone. She didn't remember the actual labor pains anymore. All she remembered was the precious little hand that peeked out of the blanket her son was swaddled in. She remembered seeing that hand reaching for her as her father walked away with the baby in her arms. His hand had been so small, barely the size of her finger. She had wanted to get up and take her child back, but the pain had been too much. If she had gotten up at that moment, she would have had to ignore the urge to push, and the child still in her womb would not have survived. Nora felt as if all the air in her chest had been sucked away and she couldn't breathe. I chose my daughter over my son. Over the years, she had made countless phone calls to Henry, pleading with him to tell her the truth. He had never helped her. She had always had a feeling deep down in her heart that her son was already dead. Otherwise, why would he still refuse to reveal the boy's whereabouts, even after the Greys had agreed to cancel the engagement? Nora could have made more of an effort to spy on him after she had returned to the States, but she had been too afraid. She had been afraid of hearing a terrible truth. She wanted to hold on to hope. She thought she knew why Cherry, who had always been a sweet but vain and pretentious little princess, had suddenly started asking for boys' clothes. She must have been pretending to be a boy to cheer her up and take away a bit of her pain. She looked at her tearful daughter in front of her. When she heard what Pete said, she forced a smile and choked up as she said, "You don't have to comfort me, Cherry." Pete was afraid. The boy, who had been quiet and calm since he was a baby, was crying so hard that his face was covered in tears. His mum looked sick and pale, and her usually calm eyes were filled with despair and emptiness. Tears were rolling down her cheeks uncontrollably, and her breathing sounded ragged. She seemed as if she were about to collapse and pass out at any moment. He panicked. He grabbed Nora's hand and shouted, "Mummy, I'm not lying. I'm Pete. I'm Peter Hunt, not Cherry. I'm not your daughter. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have kept it a secret from you." Nora was silent, her eyes glazed over and unfocused. "Mummy, look at me. I'm your son. I was wrong. I won't lie to you again, I promise." Nora's eyes gradually regained focus. The wheels in her head began to turn. She looked at Pete. "What did you say?" She thought all of it sounded ridiculous. Yet, as he cried, she thought over the last few days and wondered at how strange Cherry's behavior had become. She suddenly stopped playing games and started to read. She would occasionally become very quiet. And now, all of a sudden, she could speak fluent Arabic. Everything in front of her became vague and surreal. For a moment, Nora couldn't tell whether this was a dream or reality. With her eyes filled with confusion, she asked, "Really?" "Mummy, it's true." Pete put his arms around her waist. With his little face raised, he said, "Cherry and I look exactly the same. She's my sister, but my name is Peter Hunt and my father is Justin Hunt." Nora stared at him. "I don't understand. If you're Pete's, then where's Cherry?" Pete could see that she didn't quite believe him. He was worried she would become upset and confused again, so he set his jaw and said, "Come with me." He held Nora's hand in his own, and the two of them went back downstairs. Sheena was still ranting. She may be a child, but she talks big. 8 languages. She's probably just learned a phrase so that she could brag to people, right? And how dare she look down on Lena's 2nd place award? She's probably never even gotten 3rd place in anything. That's enough. The elderly Mrs. Anderson slammed her white cane against the floor. "She's your sister's only daughter. She's been through a lot." Sheena screamed. "She's been through a lot. What about me? If she hadn't run away from home, our reputation wouldn't have become so terrible. My engagement wouldn't have been ruined. We had to put up with so many rumors and lies because of her." Melissa sighed deeply. Everyone had loved Nora's mother. That was why they were so upset with her. Even Sheena had once been proud of her sister. She was about to console Sheena when she heard someone coming down the stairs. She turned to see Nora and Cherry coming down. She said, "It's late, Nora. Where are the two of you going?" Pete was very anxious and clung to his mother's side. Nora was too emotionally overwrought to speak clearly, so she didn't answer. The two of them left the house without a word. A look of confusion came over Melissa's face. Mrs. Anderson, who couldn't see, asked anxiously, "What's the matter? Did Nora leave? Was it because of Sheena? Sheena, get Nora back here. If she leaves, then you can forget about ever coming back here to see me." Sheena was also dumbfounded. Her sharp and fierce expression cracked, but she nevertheless curled her lip and scoffed. "She can leave if she wants to. I'd be very happy to see her being a little more independent instead of relying on us." Melissa panicked and replied, "Nora has never once said that she intends to rely on us. She's a doctor. She can support herself. If you don't like her, then you can stay away." With that, she ran after Nora. Unfortunately, she was too late to catch her. Nora had already started the car and driven away. Little Pete sat next to her in the passenger seat. With his seatbelt buckled and his cell phone in hand, he read out the instructions to get to the Hunt estate. Turn right, and then turn left at the third intersection. He knew his mum was scared and needed to see him and Cherry together before she could feel at ease. He didn't want to hide anything from her anymore. Nora stayed silent as she drove. Half an hour later, they pulled up to the gates of a villa complex. The security guards at the gates were stern and refused to let them in at first, but one of the guards recognized Pete and immediately greeted him respectfully. "Welcome back, Mr. Hunt." Nora, who had a stern look on her face, stared intently ahead of her. She had already calmed down during the drive. She believed most of what Pete had said, or at least she desperately wanted to. But she was scared. She needed to see both children standing in front of her together before she could really believe it. The guards gave them clearance and she drove into the villa complex. "Mummy, go to villa number 8. Nora obediently stopped the car at the villa's entrance. She staggered out of the car and knocked on the door. She rang the doorbell, and a few seconds later, someone opened the door. Cherry's adorable little head popped out and she looked around. "Who? Mummy?" Justin's voice was close behind her. "Who's at the door, Pete?"
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.